Hi and welcome to my channel. I've decided to color a page using only the Castle Arts Harmonious Set, specifically this one from the cover. If you're new to the channel, hi, my name is Ina. If not, welcome back. Here I've already grabbed the page quite randomly. The previous page shows the same illustration already colored, but unlike the cover, it has a white background. I think I leave the background white as well. When we compare the color selection from the Castle Arts Harmonious Set, it matches quite well. The only thing that doesn't fit perfectly are the yellow tones, as this set actually has only this one slightly yellowish shade. But that's not an issue. The yellow flowers here will simply get a different color. In general, I'm not trying to copy this picture. Okay, let's get started. I'll begin with the greenery. I'd like to make the branches and leaves a bit greener, partly because I have some lovely green shades in this set, and partly because I think I prefer the green a bit more. Maybe I'll add a touch of brown or gray to some parts. Alright, let me quickly pick out the right pencils. So, I've decided on these 4 colors: bayberry, pine green, seaweed, and wild thyme. As you can see here, I tested them first on a scrap piece of paper. On the first try, the middle shade didn't match at all, so I've now applied it lightly under the darker colors to enhance the shadows. I start with bayberry and sketch in the shadows. If I were coloring this page with different colors, I'd probably look up references to see how the individual plants appear in real life. But here I'm doing something a bit untypical for me. I'm just going with the flow, since my color selection is limited anyway. Now I'm thinking about which branches and leaves to color with this green combination, and which to use a second combination on, just like in the illustration on the previous page. Even though I plan to use 2 green combinations, I'm not comparing exactly which leaf should be in which color. I'm going more with intuition. In general, I believe I've never completely copied a page. I always let myself be inspired and added on my own twist, my own ideas. Since I'm going to make this flower a bit beige, I also color the leaves here in the slightly brighter green. I've already finished the leaves down here near the flower, meaning I've done the green shading. I'll use a different color combination for the remaining leaves. Now I'm using the actual shadow color, which is seaweed, to go over the shadows again. This makes them a bit darker, and I'll do the same for all the other plant parts. The green still looks relatively normal. I'm curious to see if at some point I feel like adding other colors or not. Okay, all the shadows have been done. Now it's time for the next color, pine green. It's generally a good idea to go over the darker shade with a lighter one, to ensure that as little white as possible shows through, and you can blend the colors smoothly. So, I'm curious to see how it will turn out when I go over it with wild thyme. It's relatively grayish and not as bright green as I'd normally use. As expected, I now feel the urge to add a bright, light green. But I think once the page is finished and everything fits nicely together in terms of saturation, it will look great. I'm now using this color with a bit more pressure to blend everything, so the white of the paper no longer shows through. Okay, that's done. What should I do next? I decided to work on the remaining leaves, and for that I use moss gray, stone gray, and gossamer. The same colors I used on the page with the petrified sleeping trolls. I link it here if you want to watch it. My current sharpener gives a very long tip, and you can clearly see with this pencil that I haven't used it much yet. It's still in its original sharp condition. I really want to use these colors from the set more often, but sometimes I'm not quite sure what for. They are a great addition to other sets, but you really have to remember to include them and not just stick to the one set you're currently using. Castle Arts has included some sample images colored solely with this set, and you can also download templates for them. However, they refer to this set as a complementary set to other sets, not as a standalone set. The shadow areas of the leaf have faded a bit, so I go over them again with the darkest color to enhance them a little. I quickly color the other leaves the same way. Now that all the leaves are finished, the question is, which flower should I start with? I've decided on this light one here, and we'll see which colors work best for it. Okay, I've made my choice. I'll use Comfort White as the lightest tone, followed by Ammonite, Wheatgrass, Calamine, and French Grey. The colors don't match the reference exactly, but as I said, that's not my goal. Alright, I'll start with French Grey in the darkest areas. The colors are all very light, so it might not be visible in the video, but in real life you can definitely see the difference compared to the white of the paper. I like bright and vibrant colors, but I have to say I'm quite pleased with how it turns out so far, even though I had some doubts along the way. If I were to create a dark background now, I might consider making the lines of the light blossom white in the end. However, since I want to keep the background white, I believe the blossom would somewhat blend into the background, which is why I've decided not to do that. Okay, moving on to the other large blossom. The colors are relatively similar to the ones found in the Harmonious set. I'm using beetroot, plum, dusty rose, and calamine again. Here you can clearly see the comparison between the original tip and when I've sharpened a pencil with my sharpener. Even though the lead is quite long, the pencil itself isn't actually shorter than the others. It just looked that way. Especially when you use the sharpener for the first time, it feels like you're shaving off a lot. But when you hold the pencils side by side, you see that the lead isn't shorter than the others, only the wooden part of the pencil. Here as well, I'm working my way from the shadows toward the brightest areas of the petals. When the petals have lines, like in this case, I like to color in the direction of the strokes. If one stroke is longer, I like to extend the color I'm using further into the petal to avoid a perfectly uniform look. This makes it a bit more realistic, with some color reaching deeper into the petal, while other areas have less, giving the whole thing a livelier feel. The petal and its structure appear a bit irregular, and there are no harsh edges. When I color over the darker color with a lighter one, I apply more pressure. The closer I get to the white area, the more I try to reduce the pressure to blend it better with the next lighter color. Now I've reached the lightest shade, and I'll do exactly the same with all the other petals. Okay, the next flower is now finished. Now I'm working on the blue flowers. I would say this blue is a bit too bright for me, so I might go with these colors instead. I've decided on night blue, petrel blue, gentian blue, and mosaic blue. Now I'm wondering how to do the inside of the blossoms when I don't have any yellow. Either I'll use wheat grass or a golden gel pen, even though that's not part of the Harmonious set. But I won't be too strict about that. I find that the more of these desaturated colors I add, the more harmonious it looks because it doesn't feel as unusual anymore. You can see that everything becomes balanced and cohesive. It just fits together. I've just realized that the closed blossoms also need to be blue, since they're the same flowers. Also, I noticed I completely forget the green leaves on this blossom, so I quickly use the first green combination again. Next, I'll work on these two. I think they are faded poppies. I color the upper part in porpoise and beaver gray. The inner part will be darker, gradually getting lighter toward the outside. Okay, now onto this slightly orange blossoms. Or maybe they're berries. I color them with rosy stone, amaretto and pavilion gray. These two blossoms down here are yellow in the reference image. But as I mentioned before, I will color them in another color. So I'm making them purple, using eggplant, purple rose and wild berry. Now we're missing these small blossoms. In the reference image, they're very dark brown. Although there are some dark brown shades in the set, I don't really like them for flowers. That's why I've chosen purple again, but a darker shade than in the previous blossoms. The combination consists of inky blue, antique violet and brassica. Finally, only the center of the blossoms is left. For that, I'm using wheatgrass, the only slightly yellowish tone. However, I didn't like how it turned out at all, so I switched to using the Pentel Hybrid gel pen in gold. And with that, the page is complete. On the other pages in this book, I've always added a background. Here, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not doing that. I have to say, using only the colors from the Harmonious set is somewhat limiting, and you need an image that fits. But I really like the final result. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed and found this video helpful. Hopefully see you next time. Bye!